was sold originally as a herbicide trait to clean up your wheat fields. And that is a big part of it. So we'll talk about that right now. The other part of it is very profitable in its own right when it's handled correctly. Average increase of 20% the first year would be conservative on Jeff and on my fields. That's like saying if you're a 40 bushel wheat grower and you picked up 8 more bushel. There's been many times we picked up 20, 25 bushel right off the bat. But you know, this is something conservative that we can put in print. One unexpected thing that we found a few years ago was you get that compensatory gain the first year. We expected that. But the second year of wheat, we're still seeing clean wheat, no dockage, and a yield increase of where we were before. And we have settled into a 1-year canola, 2-year wheat rotation. We feel that at that point in time we want to get back to canola. It's profitable in its own right. We want to keep our wheat crystal clean, and we want to keep our yields up. So that is what we have settled into as a 1 and 2 rotation.
Some rotational benefits of growing this crop. Soil health and fertility. This creates an excellent no-till seed bed. You can take any drill on the market and, you know, reasonable conditions. Of course, you're always going to have your extremes, but you can no-till into canola residue with basically anything. This is the most mellow, tilthy soil that you'll ever put your hands into. So it makes a great seed bed. The taproot on this crop can go down 3 to 5 feet. It's going to improve your soil structure, help with alleviating some tight ground, some hard pan. It is not a jackhammer. It's not going to break cement, but you know, it will go down and improve your soil structure and soil health. You're able with that deep taproot to utilize leached nitrogen. I'm going to let Bob touch on some of this bleached nitrogen. He's been doing some grid soil sampling, going down, taking 30, 36-inch samples as well as the 0 to 8s. Bob, tell us what you're finding.
Acre service supplier that I have that does a good job for us purchased a soil sampling machine that can go down, an auger system and go down 30, 36 inches and pick up these cores and do it in rapid fashion. And we got this information a couple of years ago, and we're finding that there's 80 to 100 pounds in our rotation now, consistently in that 30 to 10 inches. And the fibrous root system of wheat, I don't think we're getting it all the time. Years of extra fertilizer for stocker cattle, which we can do, and several reasons. We've got this amount of N, and it's not just 1 year, it's several years of soil sampling that we found this decent amount of N. So with the taprooted broadleaf crop like canola, we believe we can go down and mine that and not have to put on so much N. And in the last few years, I've been doing that on a few pieces of ground, a couple of quarters, a couple of half sections. And right now, across the board, I've eliminated about 50% of my nitrogen bill, and our yields are still going up. So when we get into this rotation, can't really explain why. We think that the taproot on our subsequent wheat crops is still there. We think that we're going down and mining it, and then in the stems and the pods, that the residue is breaking down and releasing that nitrogen closer to the surface. O-State, we've done some thoughts about this trials. We're not exactly sure, but it's been proven time and time again to the point where I'm betting my farm on this. And in prices of nitrogen like they are now, it's advantageous to do that. I don't want to give up any yield because the price of the grain is high. But we've seen this now for enough years, back to back, that I believe.
So, you know, we've got this financial boost from lessening our nitrogen needs in our falling cropping system. We've also get a benefit from micronutrients that we will touch on later, as these micronutrients that we're using in crop for canola are benefiting our subsequent crops. I've got a deal that we will discuss later on boron application. Where I did that crop last year is planted the wheat this year, and you can see to the line where I left the boron off for my trial. Who'd have thought boron would benefit anything in Oklahoma? You know, that's used in almond orchards and alfalfa in Minnesota. You know, something we stumbled across. Fertility. Bob, you've seen some nightmare wrecks of high nitrogen levels in the fall, so discuss that with us.
On my own farm and for other growers, something that we struggle with is, say, anhydrous is a whole bunch cheaper per pound of N than urea and liquid. So, you know, we say, okay, let's go ahead and put on 80, 90, 100 pounds actual N. We're already going over the ground, let's do it now, be done with it. Save the price of fertilizer, because usually the price of anhydrous is that much cheaper than these other forms. What has gotten Me and the trouble and a few of the growers is if we have the open fall, October, November, we get more rain than normal, we have a lot of sunny days, this stuff will get rank. It'll get tall, burn up water, will burn up all this extra nitrogen that we're just going to defoliate anyway. If we get into a moisture-sensitive situation down the road, which we almost always do in this part of the world, that's just water you burn up. That's yield you're not going to get back. So I've changed my fertility program to a small amount of anhydrous up front, or no anhydrous up front, because we're finding this 80 pounds of carryover and stuff. You still got to get the roots down there to get to it, so you got to promote some fertility to get a good root structure and get in the winter so you don't have excessive winter kill. But we found the varieties we have now available for decal, that they are winter hardy, they can be a small little rosette, and I'd rather plant, we'll talk about this a little later, plant towards the tail end of the planting window and not burn up any water, nutrients, and just keep it alive until it goes reproductive in the spring.
Advanced micros, what we've learned, Bob and I have been doing some on-farm testing with boron, with zinc, looking at some different things. We seem to have hit a yield plateau of 1,800, 2,000 pound, 40 bushel yield. As far as a consistent deal, there's times, Bob's first crop he ever planted, 800 acre did what, 2,800 pounds, home run there. So, but there is something that seems to be holding us back. So we've started investigating into what can this be. I came up with the boron deal after meeting with some people from Europe, talking to people over there, how they're telling me it increases winter hardiness, pod set, or bloom set, pod set, yield, all these other components. So I started doing some trials with that. This strip I talked about a little bit ago with the wheat looking bad where it did not receive boron, I left a 90-foot sprayer pass a full mile long through a half section with no boron. The balance of the field got a half pound of actual boron. That was flagged, marked, came back in at harvest with a weigh wagon, and we harvested our check plot with no boron, then harvested a same 90-foot by a mile run right next to it that received a half pound of boron, 15 bushel yield response. At $10 a bushel, that's $150 an acre, guys, for $4 worth of boron.
You doing that pre-plant?
No, I do that in crop with a foliar grade material. I'm using a U.S. borax brand they call Solubor. It can be mixed in water with Roundup, insecticides, and liquid fertilizer. It's got the consistency of flour. I mean, it's just a very fine powder. But you want the crop actively growing, and I'll touch on that a little later on when we need to apply that. Big yield boost. Is 15 realistic? I don't know, maybe it was a fluke last year. I'll find out this year. I expected 5, maybe 8 bushels per acre difference. I'll take 15, So we've got these nutrients that we can come in with these micros, add them in. The crop's going to respond to them with these in-crop treatments, and we're going to see a big benefit from them. More research needs to be done. This is farmer research. We're not a university, but these are things that Bob and I are seeing to be effective, good dollars spent that really give us a payback. I want to caution people on salt load with their fertilizer. Got several operators around the state now that if they know they're going to plant this particular farm to canola next year, when they planted their crop this year, they doubled up on their phosphate. They got their potash correct, so that way they're not going out there trying to put down starter fertilizer in furrow with the seed, having a high salt load and killing the germination on the canola. We don't like fertilizer with the canola. So these are some things that you want to try to wrap your mind around. Work on things. Don't look at it from a year-to-year cropping system. You need to look out 3 years, 5 years. Keep your herbicide rotations in check. Your fertility. If I can do something now for later, just like you're going to get a payback for what nitrogen you put into this crop now, it's going to pay you back year 2, year 3. So we need to start thinking in a systems approach instead of just a year-by-year cropping cycle.